The next question is, how are younger LGBT people, and in parentheses under 30, relating to LGBT enclaves and specific marketing, and what is the difference between them and boomer LGBTs?
That sounds like me.
Yeah. I'll tell you about the suburb thing, but you do the marketing thing.
There's huge difference between Gen Y and boomer markets, and I think all you have to do is go to the Castro and you can start seeing that, and really in any major urban area. We were talking about this before we started tonight a little bit, and part of this is just a general maturation process. I mean, if we all think back to when we were coming out, and that it was, for most of us, it was a process. It wasn't one day I'm out to everybody. It was, you know, I did this, and then I did that, and then I did that, and it was a chain of events, and it took a period of time. Well, people in their 20s may be going through that period of time to some extent, and that's what creates some of the differences between Gen Y people and boomers. But there's also a very strong cultural difference going on in that Generation Y individuals are, they look at diversity as being how the world is supposed to be. So whether you're black or white, gay or straight, male or female, they're looking for inclusivity. And that's what's important to them when we're trying to reach them, when we're trying to market to them. It's important for them to see that a company is representing a broad group of people rather than targeting someone. They don't want to be targeted. Boomers, on the other hand, you know, we got used to gay neighborhoods because that was a place to socialize. And so we, especially gay men, congregated into areas where we could have a gay ghetto, and we could have bars and bookstores and cafes and restaurants, and it gave us a social outlet to meet other people like us. The internet comes along, and we find other ways to meet people like us, and of course the Gen Y generation is completely hooked into the net. I mean, they're using their phones for things that I don't begin to understand, and so a lot of it's just about aging, and we're seeing some big differences that way. So we're seeing big changes in gay neighborhoods like the Castro because Gen Y people don't look at a neighborhood in the same way that post-Stonewall boomers do.
And then they also can't afford those neighborhoods. And so you're seeing, I think, two things happening with census data. You're seeing less urbanicity among same-sex couples, and I think that's due to two factors. One, as has been pointed out, more people are becoming willing to say that they're in a same-sex couple, particularly in very conservative areas. So it's partly that what we thought were so urban maybe just wasn't quite that urban. But there's also evidence that the really intensely gay neighborhoods are kind of becoming less so. Like I said, some of them have kind of priced themselves out. Some of them, it's just about the need for the social component isn't as great. And furthermore, that younger people don't feel the need to segregate in the way that perhaps an older generation would have, because they're growing up in a world that's generally more accepting of them. So one of the things I often say is, you know, if you're a gay man or a lesbian in Ottumwa, Iowa, you don't actually have to go to New York or San Francisco anymore. You can just go to Kansas City and find sort of a network, and I think that's what's starting to happen. But so one follow-up I wanted to ask was, in HIV prevention, do you find you have to do it different to the younger generation than you would have done it when you did it 20 years ago?
To reach them for surveys, to get
just to get them to change their behaviors, and, you know, marketing to them, basically.
The prevention messages. Yeah, I mean, that's a continual struggle, though. I mean, the message gets stale, too, to those who've heard it before as well. Yeah. So it's a continual struggle. But as far as sampling, yeah, we do have to also tailor to where younger MSM can be found.
The next question is a two-part question. The first part is for Dr. Gates, and the second part is for Dr. McFarland. Part one is, how do you survey single LGBT people? And the second part is, what is the percentage of single people in San Francisco? And the first part for Dr. Gates.
I mean, the most common way you survey is either, in a lot of the marketing firms, they use internet methods to do that. And when we say the internet, there are a wide variety of ways that people use the internet to gather information from and marketing has largely been at the forefront of doing this, and many of them do it in ways that they try to make it as representative as possible. But obviously, that's an easy way to capture both single and coupled households. But all the whole survey techniques like random digit dial, where you just call a bunch of people. There was a tobacco survey in California that just called a whole lot of households and asked a screener that if there was anyone here who either identified as gay or had any kind of same-sex behavior, and then if there was, they asked them a whole bunch of questions, and again, they got a single and coupled sample. I don't know if you have numbers for single couple in San Francisco. I actually do.
What is it?
I mean, it's my estimates. It's much lower. San Francisco is much more single-oriented, so the estimates I've seen are closer to kind of in the 20 to 30% range. I don't know if that's where your numbers come up.
That's exactly where it's coming from. Yeah. Again, what we do is the perspective of behavior, and often the root of the questions we're asking is getting at what sexual behaviors do they engage with their main partner versus a casual partner versus an anonymous partner. But again, this reassurance that I think we're in the same ballpark. Depending on how the question is asked, between 27 and 38% for us said they had a main partner. So how that subset out is whether they're coupled, married, or...
And women are much more likely to have a partner than men are. Yeah. Although the flip side of that is that male relationships have longer duration than female relationships.
Interesting.
Throw that one out.
We find that gay men have median
stereotypes.
relationship length is 7 years, and median relationship for lesbians is 5 years. They're pretty close together, but it's kind of an oddity.
And it's a consistent finding in research that gay male relationships are on average longer than lesbians, but lesbians are quite a bit more likely to be in a relationship. And curiously, among heterosexuals, women say they want to be married more than men, but women initiate divorce more often than men, which fits then if you translate that into the gay thing. So once men get together, they don't break up as much, but women want to be together more, but then they break up.
So I'm going to combine the next two questions, which are both for Dr. McFarland. According to the questioner, DPH made estimates some 20 years ago of 125,000 LGBT people in San Francisco. Was that wrong? Has the population shrunk? And what is the status of LGBT immigration in and out of San Francisco? And to sort of smush it all together, how would a larger number impact funding for the community?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'm the one who's come up with the number for the last 15 years. I think you're picking the one that was before my time. So it's hard to comment on whether the methods would lend itself to saying that there's some bias or something wildly off. So it's hard to say. The only thing I can say now is even though these numbers are not precise, we do have some reality checks on whether they're feasible or not. That one strikes me as not being easily reconciled with the number of people reported with HIV, diagnosed in the city and reported to our system. So I think my answer would be it's overestimated. And for all the complexities we've said, I'm not surprised, and it's perfectly understandable that would happen. Of course, if the number were larger, then we'd have to reconcile something. Then either our current system of tracking the epidemic in terms of who's in care and who's not in care and who's being tested is wildly wrong and understated, or we have this burgeoning population that we're undershooting for the services. So yeah, it would have strong implications.
And we use a statistic at the LGBT Community Center that the average stay of a gay man in San Francisco is only 5 years. Is that a reliable statistic? We asked that, how long have you been here and where you lived last. I don't have it at my fingertips, I'm sorry. Okay.